My name is Emily Harper. I am 33 years old, and I work as a commercial insurance underwriter in Charlotte, North Carolina. 3 days ago, I sat across from a mortgage broker named Caroline Ellis, smiling like a woman who was finally close to buying her first home, while she slowly turned her laptop toward me and showed me a credit report full of accounts I had never opened. There was a home renovation line, a flooring account, a furniture package, a utility deposit, and a landscaping contract, all connected to one address I knew too well. My sister's new house. The house my mother had been showing off for months. The house I had been invited to celebrate that Saturday like I was just another guest, not the woman quietly carrying the financial weight underneath its polished floors. The total was $76,420. My name was everywhere. My signature was not mine. My phone number had been changed on half the accounts, and the recovery contact on one lender profile was my mother. I did not cry in that office. I did not scream. I did not call my mother from the parking lot and give her the satisfaction of hearing me shake. I stared at the screen until every number sharpened into something cold and useful. Then I asked Caroline to print everything. Before I tell you what happened after I walked into my sister's housewarming party with the truth sitting in a folder in my car, tell me where you are watching from tonight, because I want to know how many people understand what it feels like to be remembered only when your name is useful. I grew up in a family where being dependable was treated like love until I got old enough to understand it was really access. My mother, Linda Harper, had a gift for making selfish things sound like family values. If she needed money, it was not borrowing, it was helping each other. If my sister needed rescuing, it was not favoritism, it was compassion. If I said no, it was not a boundary, it was me forgetting where I came from. My younger sister, Ashley, was the soft one, the pretty one, the one my mother always described as delicate, even when Ashley was old enough to understand exactly how much damage people cleaned up for her. Ashley could miss rent and somehow become overwhelmed. I could pay 3 bills in 1 week and somehow become blessed enough to help. Ashley could lose a job and need support. I could work overtime and be told I should be grateful I had stability. That was the family math. It never balanced, but my mother always expected me to make up the difference. When I was 12, Ashley broke my grandmother's porcelain lamp while dancing in the living room after being told 3 times to stop. My mother looked at the pieces on the carpet, looked at Ashley crying, then turned to me and said, "Emily, why weren't you watching her?" I had been in the kitchen doing homework. I had not touched the lamp, but the message was clear. Ashley made messes. I absorbed consequences. By high school, that message had become the shape of my life. If Ashley forgot lunch money, my mother took mine because I was responsible enough to understand. If Ashley needed a ride, I canceled plans because she was anxious about buses. If Ashley wanted the blue dress I bought with babysitting money, my mother said it looked better on her anyway, and I should not be so attached to things. I learned early that in my family, my possessions were only mine until Ashley wanted them, and my feelings were only valid until my mother found them inconvenient. The first real financial hit came when I was 22. I had just graduated from UNC Charlotte and was working an entry-level office job that barely covered rent and groceries. Ashley had dropped out of cosmetology school for the second time and was living with my parents, telling everyone she was taking time to find her path. One Friday afternoon, my mother called me crying because Ashley's car was about to be repossessed. She said Ashley needed that car to get to interviews. She said if I helped with the late payments, Ashley would finally get back on her feet. She said family did not let family fall over something as small as money. It was $1,240. At 22, that was not small. That was half my emergency fund and 3 months of careful groceries. I sent it anyway. Ashley got the car back, drove it to a beach weekend with friends, and never paid me $1. When I asked my mother about it 2 months later, she looked offended. "Do you want your sister to feel like a burden?" she asked. I wanted to say she already was one, but back then I was still confusing honesty with cruelty, so I swallowed it. That became the pattern for the next 10 years. Ashley had emergencies. My mother translated them into obligations. I paid utility bills, car insurance gaps, medical copays, moving deposits, and once a $3,600 credit card balance my mother said Ashley had built up while depressed. Every time there was a promise. "She will pay you back. We will make it right. This is the last time." And every time, the debt disappeared into the fog of family history, where my mother stored anything that made Ashley look bad. My breaking point should have come years earlier, but people like me do not usually break at the biggest insult. We break at the moment the insult becomes too obvious to keep explaining away. For me, that started last summer, when Ashley announced she was buying a house. She was 30, newly engaged to a man named Grant, and working part-time at a boutique fitness studio where she spent more time filming smoothies than training clients. Grant sold cars and had the confidence of a man who called himself an entrepreneur because he did not like saying commission. They had been together for 11 months when my mother invited me to Sunday dinner and announced, with tears in her eyes, that Ashley and Grant had found their dream home in Matthews. 4 bedrooms, white brick, black shutters, a little backyard with a deck, and a kitchen island my mother described like it was a family member. Everyone clapped. I clapped too, because that is what you do when you are tired of looking bitter in rooms designed to misunderstand you. Then my mother turned toward me and said, "Emily, isn't it beautiful when good things finally happen for people who believe?" I knew that sentence had teeth. It meant Ashley deserved this. It also meant if I questioned the numbers, I was questioning hope itself. I asked one practical question. Can they afford it? My mother's smile changed by half an inch. They have support, she said. Ashley looked down at her plate. Grant took a drink of water. My father coughed into his napkin. And I felt the old warning inside my chest, the one that told me a conversation had been happening before I arrived and my name had probably been in it. 2 weeks later, my mother called and asked if I could co-sign one small thing for Ashley. She said it was just a temporary furniture account because the house needed to be staged properly before a final inspection. I said no immediately. Not maybe. Not let me think. No. My mother went quiet, and the silence on that call was so dramatic it almost deserved applause. "I am surprised by your tone," she said. I told her I was not co-signing anything. I told her I had spent years cleaning up financial messes and I was done. She said Ashley was finally building a real life, and I was choosing that moment to become selfish. I said a real life should be built on real approval from the person whose credit was being used. That was the first time I heard my mother use the word jealous. She said, "You know, Emily, it is okay to admit it hurts that Ashley is getting married and buying a home before you." I remember standing in my kitchen, staring at the small crack in the tile near the sink, feeling something in me harden. I had spent years being told I was too independent to need help, and now independence was being used as proof that I was jealous of the person who always got it. I said, "Do not put my name on anything." My mother replied very softly, "Nobody is putting your name on anything, sweetheart. Calm down." Then she hung up before I could answer. That sentence stayed with me, not because it reassured me, but because it sounded rehearsed. After that, I pulled my credit report once, saw nothing strange, and told myself I had overreacted. That was my mistake. I checked too early. People who plan to use you do not always move immediately. Sometimes they wait until your guard drops, until paperwork gets complicated, until you are too busy to notice one envelope or one email. By November, Ashley's house was all my mother talked about. She posted pictures of tile samples, cabinet handles, porch lights, nursery colors, even though Ashley was not pregnant. She called it their forever home, like forever had not been financed by someone's silence. I muted her posts because watching my mother celebrate Ashley's milestones with religious devotion was doing something ugly to my nervous system. Around the same time, I started working with Caroline Ellis to get pre-approved for my own mortgage. I had saved for years. Not loudly. Not with family announcements. Quietly. I had a spreadsheet, a down payment account, a realistic budget, and a small list of houses I could afford without anyone's help. The place I wanted was nothing like Ashley's house. It was a 2-bedroom brick bungalow near Plaza Midwood with old trees, narrow closets, and a front porch that leaned slightly to the left. I loved it instantly. It felt like a home built for peace, not performance. I imagined Saturday coffee on the porch. I imagined locking the door and knowing no one inside expected me to disappear so someone else could shine. Caroline said my income looked solid, my savings were strong, and unless there were surprises on my credit report, I would be in good shape. I remember laughing when she said surprises. "I am boring," I told her. "Boring is good in mortgages," she said. I went to that appointment 3 days ago with a folder of bank statements and a strange, careful hope. For the first 15 minutes, everything was normal. Then Caroline's expression changed. Not dramatically. She was too professional for that. But her eyes stopped moving the way they had before. She clicked once, then again, then leaned closer to the screen. "Emily," she said slowly, "do you recognize the address 418 Briar Hollow Lane?" The room seemed to tilt before I answered. That was Ashley's house. I said yes, but my voice sounded far away. Caroline turned the laptop slightly. "There are several accounts tied to your name and that property." At first, my brain refused to accept the words in the order she said them. My name, that property, several accounts. She showed me a home renovation line opened through a private lender for $37,500, a flooring account for $9,880, a furniture financing package for $16,400, utility deposit and service guarantee totaling $1,740, a landscaping contract with deferred billing for $10,900, all connected to my Social Security number, all opened in the last few months, all listed as current but heavily utilized. That was why my mortgage profile had changed. My debt-to-income ratio was suddenly wrong. My first home was being pushed out of reach by Ashley's dream kitchen. I did not speak for a full minute. Caroline waited, and I appreciated that more than she knew. Then she asked, "Did you authorize any of these?" I said no. One syllable, flat, clean. She asked if I had ever co-signed for my sister or anyone at that address. I said no again. She printed the report. Then she printed the inquiry list. Then she printed the account details that showed the phone number connected to 2 lenders. It was not mine. Email on one account was a strange combination of my first initial, my last name, and numbers, but the recovery contact showed my mother's cell. That was the first moment I knew this was not Ashley acting alone. Ashley was lazy with consequences. My mother was organized with them. Caroline pushed the papers across the desk. "You need to treat this as identity theft," she said. I looked at my name beside Ashley's address and felt a calm so sharp it almost scared me. I had imagined betrayal before. I had imagined my mother asking for money, pushing me, guilt-tripping me, even forging a small signature on some store card and pretending it was confusion. But this was larger. This had structure. This had planning. This had the quiet confidence of people who believed I would rather suffer privately than expose them publicly. Caroline asked if I wanted to pause the pre-approval process. I looked at the little bungalow listing in my folder, the one I had circled in blue pen, and something in my chest hurt so badly I had to press my hand flat against the desk. Not because of the money, not only. Because for 1 second, I saw the whole map of my family clearly. Ashley was building a house. My mother was protecting Ashley's future, and my future had been treated like available credit. I asked Caroline to give me copies of everything and write a short statement explaining how the accounts affected my mortgage application. She nodded. "That is smart," she said. "Smart. Not dramatic, not selfish, not jealous. Smart." I took the folder to my car and sat in the parking lot with both hands on the steering wheel. My phone was in the cup holder. My mother's name was right there in my contacts, one tap away from a fight she had been preparing for longer than I had. I could already hear her. "There must be a mistake. You are overreacting. Ashley needed help. We were going to tell you. Families do not press charges. Do you want to ruin your sister's life over paperwork? I did not call. I drove home. I made coffee I did not drink. Then I opened my laptop and started building a timeline. By 5 that evening. I had pulled all 3 credit reports, saved PDFs, highlighted every account I did not recognize, and found the first hard inquiry from the private lender. It had happened 4 days after my mother's call asking me to co-sign. 4 days after I said no. That detail mattered. Refusal had not stopped them. It had only made them stop asking. I found an email from my mother from 2 months earlier with the subject line Ashley's blessing. I had not answered it because I knew it would be a trap. In it, she wrote that Ashley and Grant were finally getting the life they deserved and that I should be proud to be part of the foundation. I had thought she meant emotionally. Now the sentence looked like a confession wearing perfume. Around 7, Ashley texted me a photo of a balloon arch being assembled in her entryway. "Housewarming Saturday. Don't be weird. Mom says you've been distant." I stared at the message for a long time. Don't be weird. That was Ashley's way of saying, "Do not bring your pain into a room where I am being celebrated." I typed back, "What time?" She replied almost immediately. 4, dress nice. Grant's boss might come. I smiled then, but there was nothing happy in it. Dress nice. They had used my name to build the stage and still expected me to show up as background. That night, I made the first call, not to my mother, not to Ashley, to the private lender. I used the number on Caroline's report and asked for the fraud department. The representative asked the usual questions, and I answered slowly, carefully, with the voice I used at work when a claim file was messy and someone needed to stay calm. I explained that an account had been opened under my identity without authorization and attached to a property where I did not live and had no ownership interest. She asked if I knew the property owner. I said yes, my sister. She paused for half a second. Then her tone changed from routine to cautious. She told me the account had been opened online with supporting documents uploaded. I asked what documents. She could not release everything immediately, but she confirmed a driver's license image, proof of income, and a digital signature packet. I asked if the phone number on file ended in 4412. She said yes. My mother's number. I wrote that down. Then I asked what happened when an account was flagged for identity theft before final funding reconciliation. She said the account could be frozen pending investigation and any connected vendor disbursements could be paused. Connected vendor disbursements. That phrase felt like a key turning. I thanked her and asked for every next step in writing. The second call was to the bank that handled my checking and credit monitoring. I put fraud alerts on everything, changed passwords, locked my credit, and requested written confirmation. The third call was to a lawyer named Marcus Reed, a quiet man with a voice so steady he made panic feel inefficient. I knew him through work. He did not do family drama. He did documentation, disputes, and civil liability. When I finished explaining, he asked one question. Did you ever give them verbal permission to use your identity? I said no. Did you ever sign anything connected to that house? No. Do you have written proof that they asked and you refused? I opened the old text thread with my mother and saw my own message from July. I am not co-signing anything. Do not use my name. I sent Marcus a screenshot. He went quiet for a moment, then said, Emily, do not confront them yet. I looked toward my front window where my reflection looked calmer than I felt. I was not planning to. He said, good. People who do this usually count on emotional confrontation because it creates noise. We are going to create records. By midnight, I had a folder labeled Briar Hollow Fraud. Inside were credit reports, Caroline's statement, screenshots, texts, emails, inquiry dates, account numbers, and a written summary in plain English. I slept 3 hours. The next morning, my mother called at 8:12. I let it ring. She called again at 8:16. Then she texted, big weekend for your sister. Please come with a loving spirit. I read that sentence while standing in my kitchen, and for a second I almost laughed out loud. A loving spirit, not a clean conscience, not an apology. A loving spirit so I would not disturb the celebration they had financed with my stolen future. I answered, I'll be there Saturday. She sent a heart emoji. That heart sat on my screen like a dare. Saturday arrived cold and bright, the kind of winter afternoon that makes houses look more expensive from the street. I parked 2 blocks away from Ashley's new place because I did not want my car trapped in the driveway when things turned ugly. Briar Hollow Lane was lined with tidy lawns and young trees tied to support stakes, the kind of neighborhood where every porch looked staged and every window seemed to be watching. Ashley's house was easy to spot. There were white balloons at the mailbox, a welcome sign on the porch, and a catering van parked out front. Through the windows, I could see warm lights, flowers, people moving around with drinks in their hands. My mother had built a perfect room for Eli to feel respectable. I sat in my car for a full minute with the folder on the passenger seat. Marcus knew where I was. Caroline had already sent the formal mortgage impact letter. The lender's fraud department had acknowledged my claim. My credit was frozen. The police report had been filed online that morning, not because I wanted drama, but because identity theft needed a number, and I was done letting my family turn crimes into misunderstandings. At 3:58, my phone buzzed with a message from the private lender. Investigation hold placed. Vendor and final disbursement review pending. I read it twice. Final disbursement. Ashley's closing had technically gone through, but several renovation and vendor payments were still tied to the financing package. Furniture delivery, flooring balance, landscaping deposit, and one construction draw had not fully cleared. They had moved into a house that was not finished being paid for, using money that was now under review. I put the phone in my coat pocket and walked toward the balloons. Ashley opened the door before I knocked. She looked beautiful in a cream sweater dress, hair curled, diamond ring lifted just enough that everyone could notice it without her appearing to show it off. Behind her, I saw my mother standing near the kitchen island, glowing with the exhausted pride of a woman who had mistaken theft for sacrifice. "You came," Ashley said, like I had passed a test. I said I would. She hugged me with one arm and immediately looked past me toward the street. "You didn't bring anyone?" "No." "Good. It's mostly family and important people." Important people. I stepped inside and looked around at the house my credit had been used to decorate. The entry table still had a price tag tucked under a vase. The floors were pale oak, probably the flooring account. The living room furniture was soft beige and oversized, arranged around a fireplace with candles no one had lit. The kitchen island was covered with charcuterie boards, champagne glasses, and little cards that said "Welcome home, Ashley and Grant." Every detail was tasteful. Every detail felt like evidence. My mother crossed the room with both hands out. "Emily, finally." She kissed the air near my cheek, not my skin. "Doesn't your sister's home look incredible?" I looked at her for one extra second before answering. "It looks expensive." Something flickered in her eyes. Ashley laughed too quickly. "That's what happens when you have taste." Grant came over, shook my hand, and thanked me for coming in the tone men use when they believe they own the room because no one has corrected them yet. My father sat in the corner with a beer, watching football on mute like this entire event had nothing to do with him. For the first hour, I behaved exactly the way they expected me to behave. I smiled. I accepted sparkling water. I complimented the backsplash when Ashley pointed at it. I listened while my mother told 3 different guests that Ashley and Grant had worked so hard for this. Worked so hard. The phrase floated through the room like perfume sprayed over smoke. At one point, Ashley pulled me into the kitchen and lowered her voice. "Please don't be strange today." I looked at her. "Strange how?" She rolled her eyes. "You know how you get. Quiet, judgy. Mom is really emotional and I don't want anything ruining this." I almost admired the confidence it took to stand inside a house financed with stolen identity and worry that my facial expression might ruin the mood. "I'll be careful," I said. She squeezed my arm like we had reached an understanding. We had not. At 5:12, the first crack appeared. Grant looked down at his phone, frowned, and stepped into the hallway. A minute later, Ashley followed him. My mother noticed immediately because she monitored Ashley's mood like a stock market. I stayed near the dining table, close enough to hear pieces without seeming interested. "What do you mean paused?" Grant whispered. Ashley said, "That doesn't make sense. They delivered the couch." Grant said, "Not the rest of it." My mother walked over, smiling at guests as she passed, then hissed, "What happened?" Grant's voice sharpened. "The flooring balance got flagged. The furniture company says the second delivery is on hold. The landscaping check didn't release." Ashley said, "But the party is literally happening." As if timing changed legality. My mother turned her head slowly, and for the first time that day, her eyes found me with something close to fear. Not guilt. Fear. Guilt requires a moral center. Fear only requires consequences. She walked toward me, still smiling with her mouth. "Emily," she said softly, "can we talk in the pantry?" I looked at the pantry door, then at her. "No." The word landed cleanly. Her smile tightened. "This is not the time." "For what?" I asked. Ashley appeared behind her, pale under her makeup. Grant stood in the hall holding his phone like it had betrayed him personally. A few guests were still laughing in the living room, unaware that the foundation of the celebration had started to split. My mother lowered her voice. "Do not do this here." I kept my voice just as low. "I am not doing anything. The lenders are." Her eyes widened. There it was, confirmation. She knew exactly what I meant. Ashley stepped forward. "What did you do?" That question was so perfect I almost thanked her for it. Not what happened. Not what are you talking about. What did you do? I set my glass down. I reported identity theft. Grant swore under his breath. Ashley stared at me like I had slapped her. My mother grabbed my wrist. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to remind me of every time she thought my body was just another thing she could move where she wanted. I looked down at her hand until she let go. "We need to fix this," she whispered. "No," I said, "I already did." My mother's face changed then. The soft family mask slid just enough for the person underneath to look out. "Do you have any idea what this could do to your sister?" I nodded. "Yes, I read the same account list you did." Ashley made a small sound, half gasp, half accusation. "Mom said it was temporary." I looked at her. There it was again, that magical family word. Temporary, temporary help, temporary account, temporary lie. Temporary damage. always somehow permanent for me. You knew my name was on it, I asked. Ashley looked away. Grant answered instead because men like Grant often mistake speaking first for controlling the story. Your mother said you agreed to help. I turned to him. Did you ever hear me say that? He opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother stepped in quickly. Emily, your sister was under pressure. The lender wanted stronger backing. We were going to tell you after everything settled. After what settled? I asked. After the house was finished. After my mortgage got denied. After the debt sat on my report long enough that removing it became harder. My mother's voice sharpened. Do not act like you are homeless. You have an apartment. Ashley has a family to build. I almost smiled. There it is. Ashley started crying then, not because she was sorry, but because crying had always been her first language in rooms where accountability was spoken. Guests began to notice. The laughter thinned. Someone turned down the music. My father stood up slowly from the corner, annoyed that reality had interrupted the game. What's going on? He asked. I looked at him. Mom and Ashley opened loans in my name for this house. The room went quiet in layers. First the kitchen, then the dining room, then the living room as the words traveled. Grant's boss, a tall man in a navy coat, looked down at his drink like he wished he could disappear into it. One of my aunts whispered, Linda. My mother turned toward the audience she had forgotten was there. That is not what happened. Her voice became soft, wounded, practiced. Emily has always had complicated feelings about Ashley. We were handling family finances privately. I reached into my coat and pulled out one sheet, not the whole folder, just Caroline's letter. This is from my mortgage broker. These accounts stopped my own home approval. My mother froze. Ashley stopped crying for half a second. My aunt took a step closer. I did not hand the paper around. I did not need to. The point was not performance. The point was record. I also have the credit reports, the lender inquiry dates, the account numbers, the police report, and the text where I clearly refused to co-sign anything. My father looked at my mother with a tired kind of betrayal, not because she had hurt me, but because she had created a problem he could no longer ignore. Linda, he said, what did you do? My mother's face flushed. I did what I had to do for our daughter. That sentence told everyone in the room which daughter she meant. I let the silence after it stretch. Sometimes people expose themselves better when you do not rush to help them cover the wound. Ashley whispered, Emily, please. I turned to her. Did you sign my name? She cried harder. Mom handled the paperwork. That is not an answer. Grant said, look, maybe this got messy, but we can make payments. We just need you to withdraw the fraud claim so the vendors don't pull out. I looked around at the pale floors, the flowers, the welcome home cards, the champagne. You want me to lie to protect the house you built with my identity? My mother snapped, you are making it sound criminal. The title of the person who did it does not change the action, I said. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then my phone buzzed. Marcus. I stepped toward the hallway and answered. His voice was calm. The lender's counsel contacted me. They are freezing the renovation line and notifying the vendors. They also asked whether you want to provide a sworn identity theft affidavit today or Monday. I looked back into the kitchen where my mother was whispering furiously to Ashley. Today, I said. Marcus paused. Are you safe? Yes. Then leave before they turn the room into pressure. I looked at the house one more time. The cream furniture. The perfect island. The white balloons outside. The life my sister had been given with my name hidden under it like wiring behind a wall. I'm leaving now. When I hung up, my mother was in front of me again. Emily, wait. Her voice had changed. It was smaller now, almost intimate, the voice she used when shame needed to be managed privately. We can fix this as a family. I shook my head. You had months to treat me like family. You used me like paperwork. Ashley sobbed. I could lose the house. I looked at her, and for one brief, painful second, I saw us as children again. Her standing behind our mother, me standing in front of the consequence. I did not hate her in that moment. That would have been easier. I was just done paying admission to a family that only opened the door when my name could cover the cost. Then you should have built it with your own credit, I said. Grant muttered something about lawyers. My mother pointed at me, her hand shaking now. You will regret humiliating your sister in her own home. I picked up my folder from the entry table. It is not her own home if my identity is still holding up the walls. That was the line that ended the party. Not officially. No one announced it. But people started gathering coats, avoiding eyes, placing half-finished drinks on counters like evidence they wanted to abandon. My aunt touched my arm near the door and whispered, I did not know. I believed her. That was the strange thing. My mother was not careless with lies. She distributed them carefully, giving each person only the version that would keep them useful. Outside, the air was cold enough to sting my face. I walked to my car without looking back. Halfway down the block, Ashley ran after me in heels, crying my name. I stopped beside a mailbox. She stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself. "I'm sorry," she said. It came out small, almost childlike. I wanted to believe it. A tired part of me wanted one clean apology after 33 years of being the family's spare foundation. "For what?" I asked. She blinked. "What? Be specific." Her face crumpled in irritation first, then grief. "For letting Mom use your information." I waited. She swallowed. "For knowing and not stopping it." That was the first honest sentence she had said all day. It did not repair anything, but honesty has a different sound than panic. "Thank you for saying that," I said. She looked relieved too soon. "So can you please tell them it was a misunderstanding? We can refinance later." "Grant says if the vendors pull out, everything gets destroyed." I felt the door close inside me, softly but completely. "Ashley, your apology is not a payment plan." She stared at me. I opened my car door. "Do not call me unless it is through an attorney." My mother began calling before I reached the end of the street. Then my father. Then Ashley. Then Grant from a number I did not have saved. By the time I got home, I had 46 missed calls and a voicemail from my mother that began with crying and ended with a threat about family loyalty. I saved every voicemail. Marcus sent the affidavit. I signed it electronically. The lender froze the accounts that night. By Monday morning, the furniture company had canceled the second delivery. The flooring contractor had filed a payment dispute, and the landscaping company had removed Ashley and Grant from its schedule. More importantly, the private lender opened a formal fraud investigation, and my credit bureaus began suppressing the accounts while the dispute moved forward. My mortgage approval did not magically repair itself overnight, but Caroline called me Tuesday and said, "We have a path." I cried after that call. Not loud, not dramatically, just enough to let my body release the fact that my future had not been completely stolen. The fallout in my family was exactly what you would expect from people who confuse consequences with cruelty. My mother sent long messages about betrayal. My father sent one message asking if I understood how serious police reports were. I replied, yes. That is why I filed one. Ashley sent photos of half-empty rooms, bare patches where furniture was supposed to go, and one message that said, "I hope your little bungalow is worth destroying my life." I did not answer. Grant's boss apparently found out enough to pull away from some business arrangement Grant had been bragging about at the party. My mother blamed me for that too, as if I had forced him to stand inside stolen financing and call it success. 2 days later, my aunt sent me a screenshot from a family group chat I had not known existed. My mother had written, "Emily has always resented Ashley, and now she is trying to punish her for being happy." Under it, my cousin replied, "Did Ashley use her social security number or not?" Nobody answered. That was the beginning of the truth moving through the family without me pushing it. Truth does not always need volume. Sometimes it just needs one person to ask the question everyone else is avoiding. A week later, Marcus mailed a formal cease and desist letter to my mother, Ashley, and Grant, instructing them not to contact me directly and to preserve all documents, messages, uploaded files, and communications related to the accounts. Preserve. That word did more damage than any insult I could have thrown. People who rely on confusion hate being told to keep records. My mother called from an unknown number that evening. I answered and said, "This call is being documented. You can speak to my attorney after this." She went quiet. Then she said, "You would really do this to your own mother?" I looked around my apartment at the packed mortgage folder on my table at the little bungalow listing still clipped to the front. "No," I said. "I am doing this for the daughter you never protected." She hung up. I have not heard her voice since. Maybe that will change. People like my mother do not disappear easily when they still believe there is something left to take. But something is different now. My credit is locked. My documents are organized. My lawyer has the timeline. Caroline is helping me rebuild the mortgage file. And for the first time in my life, my family is learning what it feels like when my name is attached to consequences instead of payments. I did not scream in front of the guests. I did not throw wine, break plates, or beg anyone to believe me. I let the records speak. I let the lenders freeze what should never have been opened. I let the room hear one simple truth. They ignored me when I needed love, then remembered me when they needed access. That is not family. That is theft with holiday photos. Yesterday, I drove past the bungalow again. The porch still leans slightly to the left. The paint needs work. The kitchen is smaller than Ashley. There is no dramatic staircase, no champagne island, no balloon arch waiting at the door. But when I stood on the sidewalk and looked at it, I felt something I had not felt inside any house my mother ever praised. I felt peace. Maybe I will get that house. Maybe I will get another one. But whatever home I build next will not have my mother's voice in the walls or my sister's needs under the floorboards. It will be mine because I chose it, paid for it, protected it, and refused to let anyone turn my future into their foundation. And if my family remembers me again, if they call, cry, threaten, or ask for one more chance to explain, I already know what I will say. You wanted my name on the house. Now my name is on the report.